Thank you, Madam Speaker. The preceding speaker spoke of his past as a Sea Scout, from a Sea Scout to an Air Cadet. Here we go. All of us displaying the pride that we exhibit each and every day here as proud Canadians. I had a speech here that illustrated exactly what the flag means to all of us and its history, and I feel that as a member of the Liberal Party I should talk about the history of it, because we played a big role in that, as all parties did at the time, from the 60s, from the 1920s, and straight through. There were several options put out there. From the 1920s, there was always that desire to create a flag that was distinctively ours. It did not contain the ensign of the Union Jack. It did not. It wanted to be on its own, a unique measure of who we are as Canadians living in this part of the world. Before I do that, though, I feel it necessary to talk about what has happened with this particular bill and the provisions contained therein. When we started, we were incredibly trepidatious about this because of the penalties that were contained, and having a copy of the original bill, it was titled under Section 3, it was enforcement, grant a temporary restraining order any person to comply with the provision of this act. And as I said then during second reading, measuring the intent of the honourable member from Ontario who had sponsored this bill, I can see where he was coming from, and I can see why he had such a great passion. And I remember him telling the story to us, well, how this started. In particular, I think it was the condominium situation that he was faced with, I guess campaigning, I guess going throughout his riding. The enforcement measures, however, caused great concern within our caucus, and we endeavored to go through committee, and we voted against it at the time because of that reason. And when we brought it to committee, we were surprised to see that the honourable member, the sponsor of this bill, came forward with substantial amendments. And what he has done here is that he has changed the first two to include the word encourage. People to fly the flag, not to encourage others to diminish the rights of others to fly the flag. But the Section 3 was taken out completely. And quite frankly, it was pretty much a carbon copy of what we had wanted to do within committee. Now, there was some worry whether this would go beyond the scope and the principle of the bill. I see now I guess that's not the case. And here we are going forward with this. That being said, I can honestly say that in my 7+ years of being here, I had not seen that kind of interaction from a bill within committee in a minority. And here I see it in a majority, perhaps as small irony standing in this place. I actually felt, from talking to the sponsor of this bill in committee, that he listened. And he felt passionate about this enough that he didn't want to see it tarnished in any which way, shape, or form, and he wanted to keep the ultimate principle of this bill, which is for us to fly our beautiful flag freely and with a great deal of pride. So I would like to congratulate the member. And I'm recommending to our Liberal caucus to support this bill. And I say that with all sincerity to the member, not just because it's about this bill, but the sincerity that he showed to be able to change this. In this world of politics that we play here, we always get into a situation where we make one small decision and then we stick to it. And we bear down with that decision and we listen to nobody else. To the exclusion of all others, we will stick to this opinion, whether somebody else has a contrary opinion that just might, make sense. So before I get into the bill, before I talk about the flag, I want to talk about the actual member here who sponsored this bill, who I felt listened. And I strongly feel that although, yes, my honourable colleague from the NDP said it should have been a motion, and to a great degree I agree with him, but it's not. We are presented here with a bill that was put forward with the best of intentions. As flawed as it may have been, the member actually listened. And he agreed, and we got through this in committee. Or at least from our perspective, we got through this. And when I asked him questions at committee, he was forthright, he was very humble, and he brought forward what I thought was a brave thing to do. Not bad for a brand new member. So, I want to congratulate him on that. But let's go back to the flag for a minute. Held on Parliament Hill, a huge ceremony, February 15th, 1965, with Governor-General Georges Vanier, Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson. The Canadian red ensign bearing the Union Jack and the shield of the Royal Arms of Canada was lowered, and then on the stroke of noon, our new maple leaf flag was raised. The following words were spoken on that momentous day by the Honourable Maurice Bourget, Speaker of the Senate, and he said, and I quote, "The flag is the symbol of the nation's unity, for it, beyond any doubt, represents all the citizens of Canada, without distinction of race, language, belief, or opinion," of which we illustrated in committee. An exchange of opinions that was fixed, that I believe was fixed to the benefit of all Canadians, coast to coast to coast. Now, the search for a new Canadian flag actually started back in the 1920s, when it was designated that our official colors were red and white, which was by King George V, and I believe that was in 1921. It was. In 1946, a select parliamentary committee was appointed with a similar mandate, but a lot of this stuff got bogged down in arguments and the machinations of politics. It wasn't until 1964 when Prime Minister Pearson informed the House of Commons that the government wished to adopt a distinctive national flag. And they wanted to do it in advance of 1967, which was the celebration of 100 years. Well, go figure. Maybe perhaps history is repeating, because now we discuss the gentleman's bill, the honourable member's bill, in the lead up to the 150-year celebration to take place in 2017 of this country, which we are also studying at committee. In 1964, after eliminating various proposals, the committee was left with three possible designs: a red ensign with the fleur-de-lis, Union Jack, a design incorporating three maple leafs, and of course the stylized red maple leaf on a white square. And I want to talk about that for just a moment, because I met the gentleman that I speak of here. The names of Mr. John Matheson and the gentleman that I met many years ago going to Mount Allison University. He was Dr. George Stanley, well known in the story of the evolution of a new Canadian flag. Mr. Matheson was a member of Parliament, perhaps one of the strongest supporters of a new flag, and Dr. Stanley was Dean of the Arts of the Royal Military College. Dr. Stanley's design is based on a strong sense of Canadian history, which he spoke to us about many years ago when we heard him speak at Mount Allison. The combination of red, white, and red first appeared in the General Service Medal issued by Queen Victoria. Red and white were then subsequently proclaimed Canada's national colours by King George V, as I mentioned, 1921. The committee eventually decided to recommend the single-leaf design, which was approved by resolution of the House of Commons, December 15th, 1964, followed by the Senate on December 17th, 1964, and proclaimed by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, to take effect February 15th, 1965. So, I had to mention Dr. Stanley because I was actually quite inspired by the gentleman when I met him. He's from that area of New Brunswick, and where I went to university. And I remember thinking to myself, I met the man who designed the flag. How about that? And I also talk about the pride of this flag, certainly, as many of the members in the House have done, from the Olympics to a glorious moment such as the Olympics, and to the moment of extreme low levels, of course, across this country, which we experienced through many wars. World War I and II, we had our ensigns, and of course a flag that we raised proudly around the world, whether it be for the London Olympics coming up, or whether it be for places like Afghanistan and other areas of great strife that we are involved with, and we do it for all the right reasons. So I will leave it at that, Madam Speaker, and I do want to finally congratulate my colleague for the exchange that took place, the debates that we had, and the understanding that he brought to not only this House, but committee, and I personally, and will recommend that we support his initiatives.
Resuming